go for it, man. That's
Well, thank you, Matt, for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
yeah, sure. So I am a, solution architect. I'm currently in Santiago, Chile right now, and I'm completely fascinated with stars, and I have no idea what's going on in America now until Nathan reached out and said we're going to the moon in 2024, which was a shocker. So I'm excited for this conversation for sure.
I guess that answers the first question I usually ask is, which
Oh,
is, when did you find out that we're going to the moon in 2024? Did you know? And the answer is you didn't, and I told you.
well, I heard something about they were reprioritizing it, and also heard in Space Force too, and I didn't know where it all fit together. So I'm glad you clarified that. That's very cool.
Yeah, there's this series on Apple TV called For All Mankind. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I have. How is that?
I think it's really well done. Of course, people who aren't really grounded on the facts of what actually happened could easily walk away from that movie with really crazy ideas. But
Did you see the movie The Right Stuff?
I did a long time ago as
Oh,
a child. I was like
yeah.
probably 8 or 9.
Wow. I love that movie.
I need to
Oh my
watch that
God.
again.
Yeah, totally. Sorry, I'm messing up your interview. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It's a little gems like this that make it all worthwhile. But you said you had a lot of questions. Why don't we just go into your questions?
Yeah, I'm thinking about, if you're going to be there in 2024, what I'm curious about, I think it was Jeff Bezos who said, why are we messing with um, trying to clean up the earth and fracking and all this other stuff? Why don't we try and do some of these things and make the moon a source of energy and start from there? Um, by implication, that means there's going to be some colonization and getting there as a first step. But if we're thinking this is a first step to get people back on the moon, what about that other idea of colonizing the moon and then using that and perhaps energy and all those different avenues that can go from there? Do you see this as a first step to getting towards that, or how do you envision it? I'm curious.
Yeah, I think a lot of people's like, oh, why should we go to the moon? Didn't we do that before? Been there, done that. I think it was the famous quote from a previous administration. Um, and I think there's, to answer your question, I think there's many different layers. But one is we know so little about the moon. We only visited a few little places on the equator. And then it was only like in 2010 that we discovered there's water ice actually in these permanently shadowed craters on near the poles, where um, based upon the fact that the moon has a 1 degree tilt with respect to the sun, the fact it doesn't have an atmosphere, and the fact that it has like these really deep craters, means that there's areas in the moon that are literally colder than Pluto. And any type of water molecule that makes it into these permanently shadowed areas essentially becomes frozen and trapped there. And over billions of years, we believe that like comets and wet asteroids have impacted the moon. And some of those molecules have made it into these areas, and it's accumulated kind of like this resource right there on the moon. And you may be like, water, what's the point of that? Let's bring that. Well, I mean, a gallon of water weighs about 11 pounds, right? And how many gallons of water do we drink a day? We need it for so many processes for food, for growing plants. Also, water is kind of neat. It's made out of, 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. And using electrolysis, you could break it apart, and you got oxygen for breathing and hydrogen and oxygen for rocket fuel. So it's like a huge resource. Um, so,
Wow.
so I mean, we just
Hmm.
discovered that now. The Chinese, they've landed some rovers and some probes on the moon. Last time the U.S. landed anything on the moon was like 1978, but last January, like the January of 2019, they landed their second rover on the far side of the moon near the South Pole, and they've been making discoveries and doing stuff, um, and
Really?
yeah.
Oh, I had no idea that China was actually doing that. What about Russia? Is there anyone else in the world that's taking the lead in that,
Well,
or are we?
last year, China successfully landed their their probe on the moon with a rover, and it survived like 12 lunar nights. Now, the thing about the day on the moon is a 28 Earth day with 14 days of night and 14 days of light. And during the night, it gets like to negative 100 degrees Celsius. And, you know, to be able to survive the lunar nights almost, it's really difficult to create equipment that does that. But their rover and their probe have managed to do that for over, I think, like 14, 15 different times. But is there anybody else? Well, last year, the Israelis attempted to land. There's an Israeli outfit that attempted to land a probe on the moon. Unfortunately, it crashed. So that wasn't too good. And India sent a orbiter around the moon with the lander. The orbiter was successful, and it's there still, you know, looking at the moon from above and doing uh, observations and what have you. And that's like 90% of the mission. So their mission was 90% successful. And then the other 10% was this lander. Unfortunately, it also crashed. Russia hasn't sent anything to the moon since I think the 80s. I had to look that up, but it's been a while.
Wow. So is it for, are they doing it for research reasons, or is it going to be commercial flights up there in like 2024? And with Blue Origin and SpaceX, you know, you never know what's up, but is it going to be non-research? I mean, could you and I get a ticket up there and be like, let's go look at it or anything like that? Or is that
Not
still
in
way out there?
not in 2024. You know, the last time we went, last time any human went beyond low Earth orbit was 1972. So, you know, since then we've only been within 200, 300 miles of the Earth, and the moon is something like what 90,000 miles away.
Hmm. Hmm. Why are they doing it in, why does it take 4 years to do that? Why, I mean, let me ask you another way. Why did they go from 2028, which I think was a timeline, to 2024? Was it just budgeting and competition, or was it, did something happen like, oh, now the moon has like diamonds in it or something? What what happened?
Yeah, so the current NASA administrator, Jim Bridenstine, he likes to talk about there's two different types of risks to these NASA programs. One is technical risk, you know, the actual building of the rocket, launching it, make sure it doesn't explode, making sure you keep your astronauts safe. Do they have air to breathe, dealing with radiation, all those technical things that are absolutely have to done. And he's like, there's also this whole other pile of risk called political risk. And that's you elect a new president and they want to put their stamp on things and change the direction of everything. Or, you know, the timetables are like so far out that nobody really believes them. And the thought is that the 2028 day was so far in the future that it could allow for us to just kind of try to make it without us really trying to make it. And that the idea of bringing it in within the next election cycle would help to reduce some of those political risk and put the urgency on these companies, and also make it less likely to get canceled, because whoever becomes president in November, I think they would be thrilled to put Americans back on the moon by the end of their first presidential term.
Oh yeah.
And so, you know, maybe by bringing it within that cycle, regardless of how the elections turn out, perhaps to some degree you help to reduce that political risk.
Ah, that's neat. I'm sorry. I think I took over your interview here. We're going to ask me questions. I got a ton of questions for you, but
No, let's go through your ton of questions. I love your questions.
why are you most excited about that? Why is this and I guess what's your involvement in, you know, I saw something the other day on LinkedIn, the project you're on was something, and I flipped to it and I was like, I don't follow this. But what's your involvement in this, and what's your excitement about 2024 and the moon? I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So I guess first off, my involvement is I'm simply a third-party space advocate. So I am a space cadet. I'm one of the space groupies. You know,
Well,
I'm
you're in
a,
Houston. Perfect.
I'm a runner of a space fan club, so I'm a big fan of space. Um, but on the other side, what gets me excited about it is the universe is so huge. I mean, it's like beyond our imagination. Even the solar system is so huge, and it's such a minuscule part of the universe. And then you look at humanity, we're like on this one little bitty speck. And I agree with Jeff Bezos. Earth is the most amazing place in the solar system. It's the only place that's even close to capable of supporting human life. There is no plan B. We have to figure out how to make Earth work for humans. Um, but uh, at the same token, there are a lot of things to explore out there. I mean, it's just
Oh
like you
yeah.
going down to Chile. I mean, us as humanity, we should be going to the moons of Jupiter and the moons of Saturn, and we should be really going out there and figuring out these types of things. I mean, take gravitation as an example. Gravity is something that we kind of understand the results of, in the sense that we can, through like Kepler's laws and stuff, we can plot out the orbit of pretty much um, anything traveling around the sun or some other um, big thing. But at the same token, we don't quite understand exactly what causes gravity, right? And I think a lot of that may become more obvious as we start observing the same events from very different places in space. And I just kind of imagine if you're in a house and everybody's making all their observations from one room and trying to create a floor plan of that house based upon what they can see out through the door and the shadow of the house and what have you, you're going to come up with a lot of crazy ideas and a lot of misconceptions that you take one step outside of that doorway into the hallway and you realize, oh, I was completely wrong about that. And I feel like us taking that step into space is going to have a similar type of impact on our understanding.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Right away, when you're talking about that, Nathan, I was thinking about Hubble, and Hubble. I mean, from just the point of view and the depth of detail we can get into deep space, and people here are like, "What the hell? I had no idea X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z." So, yeah, that'd be totally on. I'm totally on top of that. What do you think is going to happen? So they do, okay, so they go up there in like 2024. Did they have a plan beyond that? Like, are they just going to go up there and kind of like research stuff? Or is there a plan to like, well, I'm going to set up a little colony here and then condos over there, and then we're going to put a mining colony over here? Are there any thought or terraformers over there? That'd be so cool. But I think you see the direction we're going. What is the outlay for that? I'm just asking because I don't know. I hope it's not a dumb question, but I don't know what thought has been given to that and what technology we have that can apply to it.
I think the challenge is we have a lot of competing political and national interest. There's some people that are like, we've gone to the moon, we got that first. It's all about getting that next first. So that's Mars in some people's minds. And so let's go to the moon to do the bare minimum we need to be able to have reduce the risk of sending something to Mars, so we could get that as a first for the U.S. And I'm kind of concerned about these first because it feels like we're a teenage species or a teenage country going around trying to get all these, you know, um, how should I put it, selfies in front of all these places. So, um, but whereas really what we need to do is start developing infrastructure.
Oh.
But there's um, there's another kind of like the official plan is that 2024 is the first of a prolonged set of expeditions to the moon. Um, we have yearly expeditions from 2024 to 2028. And by that time, we've built up the infrastructure and the knowledge and what have you to have long sustained missions and maybe even permanent operations around and on the moon. And so, eventually we'll have that. The moon is a huge resource. We don't quite understand what the nature of that resource is or how valuable it is, but it's going to be a resource that will already has the interest of China, um, already has been voiced interest by Russia, though it's unclear on exactly how able the Russian space program is to do anything. They seem to have some funding and technical issues. The Soyuz that they use is essentially the same rocket that they used to send Yuri Gagarin up back, in the 1960s. So
Oh my God.
yeah, or was it 1950s? But anyway, they've just made little bitty improvements, and the Russians are very uh, what do you call it when you keep doing the same thing but you don't understand why? Superstitious. Like Yuri Gagarin, halfway between the astronaut housing complex and the rocket launch pad, had to go use the restroom. So the bus stopped. He got off the bus and peed on the tire, and then they had the flight. Well, anyway, every single Russian astronaut or American or European astronaut has flown with the Russians has had to gone through that same procedure at that exact same spot because, you know, uh, because who knows? That may have been the difference between success and failure.
Did not know that about Russians. They're superstitious. I had no idea.
Well, apparently, the night before Yuri Gagarin took his flight, he watched this movie. Of course, it's a Russian movie. It's Russian, but it's like Valley of the Sun or something. I forget what it is. But everybody's required to watch that movie the night before too. So it's like, I mean, it's like every single detail. It's like they like don't want to jinx it. We don't know what created the successful flight, but we're keeping it all.
I got a curiosity question for you. You know, everything now is becoming like artificial intelligence. We've got deep mind and we've got neural networks on top of, Tesla's kind of new neural network there for navigation and whatever the case may be. Does that help us out? Does that help maybe accelerate some of the plans we have? I mean, not just the moon, but kind of exploring and understanding the universe and where? How that apply there? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I have my own thoughts.
Wow.
So right now we just launched the Mars 2020 rover today. It's going to land on Mars February next year, and it's like this huge rover. It's the size of a small car, and the scientists that are driving it, basically they take observations of the terrain. They try to figure out where it can safely go, and they can only plot so far, and then they have to stop and take more observations and then plot how far it goes. And ideally, you would be able to have the rover kind of see its own environment and kind of drive around like a Roomba. You want a Roomba for Mars, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like vacuum up all the interesting stuff and then just let me know what you find.
Yeah.
So I think you have that for sure. But eventually, you're going to have robotic devices out there that are going to be prospecting and mining and refining and manufacturing. And at some point, you'll create this automated system that's able to take raw materials out of this foreign resource, foreign environment, this extra world environment, and to be able to build things out of them. And that's going to be a big transitional time for us because right now, to send a probe to Mars, you have to build it on Earth. You have to spend all this energy to get it into orbit, to get it towards Mars, to land it on Mars. And whenever it gets there, I mean, it's already 4 or 5 years out of date. Technology's moved on. Plus, it costs you all that energy, and plus, it costs you time. I mean, it's going to take like 6, 7 months to get to Mars. Now, can you imagine a system where instead of sending a probe to Mars, we send the plans for a probe to Mars, and that object gets created at Mars, and I mean, your cost of sending is essentially nothing, and you just have to wait for it to get built. I mean, I don't see why we can't create that system.
Yeah. No, that's a very good idea. I never really thought about that, but yeah, of course, you just send up the ability and the blueprint, and then execute. There you go. And that could be actually a jumping off point from there. You don't need to come back. You can just go to Saturn if you want. Go anywhere, but that jumping off point, step by step by step by step, all the way out into the other side of the universe. That's cool. I never really thought about that.
Yeah, because
Ooh.
the thing is, the Earth-killing meteor or asteroid, we're going to want to find that as quickly as possible, as far away from the Earth as possible. And we're going
Yeah.
to want to do something as far away from the Earth as possible. Now, if you have the ability to, uh, create a probe in the asteroid belt and send it to intersect this asteroid, I mean, you save, several months, maybe even years, in terms of being able to do something. And plus, if you create machines that create machines that create machines,
Yeah.
at some point you could turn the entire solar system into something that that's ready for human occupation. Dun
Except
dun
when the
dun.
robots turn, Battlestar Galactica, my friend. When the robots turn, oh man, they are vengeful.
And that's important. That's why it's important for us to be cute and funny all the time. These little cat memes aren't just cute. They're survival. They're required. We need to keep the robots entertained.
Yep. Yep. We got to make sure that that's programmed in there like a failsafe. Cat memes.
Cat memes, exactly. Protect the meme generators.
Huh.
But what do
Oh,
you
that's
think
well.
about space? I mean, there's some people I've talked to, they're like, oh my God, we're spending money to send people to the moon? I mean, we got like climate change and social justice issues and people in the world starving and, this COVID-19 thing. Why are we wasting money on the moon? Then I talk to other people and they're like, if we don't get out there into space, all of humanity is going to die and that'll be the end of the world. And I've talked to a lot of people that are in between, but where are you?
No, I think that there's a lot of possibilities out there. I think that we know enough about this current world to know that we're in trouble. I think that we have, on the scale of technology and development, I think we have resources that are being underutilized. AI and a lot of things out there that are being underutilized. Uh, the universe itself is so humongous. Like we're still trying to actually quantitate how large it is and how fast it's expanding. And, I mean, even look at we know there's other things out there. I'm convinced. I mean, look at the Navy, the F-16 fighter pilots they released there like that. We know there's something else out there. And, we're not the smartest people in the world, in the universe at all. I doubt that. So exploration to me has always been necessary, and how we get there and do it. But, if we were trying to put this up against social justice and climate change, and I still think it has its own place, and we should always invest in it. And we have the technology now to make it go exponentially. So if we're starting with the moon, people are like, oh, we've already been to the moon. Well, start there. And then Mars. Okay, start there. And like you say, we can start to ramp up our understanding. There's still things we don't even know. Like people are still mystified at dark matter. Like they know it's there, but they don't know what the hell it is. So if we can solve some mysteries like dark matter or energy concerns or pollution issues or colonization or minerals that we never thought of before, or yeah, I say you go for it. And I'm very optimistic as to what the outcome will be. I think that it's just the cost of getting in there the first couple of times is so high, that people are always like, oh, it's going to cost $1 billion by 2024. Well, yeah, at each additional time, your marginal cost decreases, and the benefits, because it's unknown, is worthy of exploration. I'm a big fan of it. I always have been, and I'm very positive that we don't know everything we know about. I mean, look at the other day. Like, what was it on CNN? Like those two Indian high school girls. They discovered an asteroid that no one knew about in there. So you can't tell me that we know everything about the universe. It's impossible. So I'm very high on the idea. I'm very, very positive that it's a good use of time and money, and good for us. And the USA does it, great. Let's be first. That's my thoughts on that. I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah,
Very.
and about the cost thing, it's kind of interesting about that. One reason space is so expensive is because we figured out a way to do it and we didn't know how to push it further. We built a rocket, and it barely got us to space, and we threw away the whole thing. And even if you had to throw away bicycles every time you use them, it would make it prohibitively expensive to use a bicycle. Like, can you imagine your bicycle at your friend's house? And you're like, oh my gosh, I need a new bike. I have to get back. You'd be walking before you know it. Yeah, you would have maybe 2 or 3 bicycle trips a year, and you're like, I really can't afford more than that. And I got to make them long trips. They're really worth it.
Yeah.
So, and it's like you have these arguments of like people in industry and NASA, and they're like, Oh yeah, well, I mean, expendable makes sense because you need to maximize the amount of stuff you get to the orbit. Well, fantastic, but that means you're not going to be sending much to orbit, you know? Uh, I mean, if I could send, 100 kilograms to orbit and it cost me, $1,000, and you tell me you can send a ton to orbit, but it's going to cost me, $1 billion. I guarantee you're going to send a whole bunch more with that smaller system that's reusable and cheaper.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Elon and Jeff Bezos really come in. Mainly Elon, because I see Elon with his Falcon 9. I mean, he's completely revolutionized things. I mean, the Russians are accusing SpaceX is dumping their services on the launch market and being anti-competitive. No, they're not anti-competitive. I mean, okay, they're anti-competitive from the standpoint that a car is anti-competitive to horses. Like, you don't have to feed them while you're not using them. They get you places and they have AC. Oh, and by the way, some of them do smell bad, but they don't have to. So cars are clearly
Oh,
anti-competitive to horses, and we should have outlawed cars a long time ago. I mean, it's unfair to horses.
that's a good point. Yeah. Oh my God. Wow. So I guess that kind of springs another question, like what role is private? So is a model now for NASA, are they going to contract with private, like the Blue Origins and the SpaceX to fund this exploration? Like they're out of the manufacturing business, they're just going to lease it privately and then go from there? Or are they going to do their own rockets and stuff like that? How do you envision that? What's the policy? I don't know.
Yeah, right now, there's a lot of tension there. You have the traditional NASA designs everything, and they get contractors like Boeing and Lockheed and these types of companies to build it for them. And they use cost plus contracting, where they're like, hey, we'll pay whatever it costs you to do it, and we'll put a little bit of ice cream on top for you. And they're like, well, the ice cream is proportional to the amount of cake. We're going to make sure the cake is big as possible. So
Yeah.
so you have that, and there's some people that are like, hey, that's worked for us in the past. That got us to the moon. NASA needs to own the rocket. NASA needs to be able to make sure it's safe and what have you. And there's another group inside of NASA, and there's like so much conflict, between the future and the present. But there's another part of NASA that's like, hey, NASA needs to be a customer. We need to create this marketplace. We need to be, one of the anchor customers that kind of stimulate the marketplace, but we don't need to be the only customer, and we don't need to control everything. And they've done this with getting supplies up to the International Space Station. What is called the commercial resupply program. Um, and basically, four companies, they had like this funnel. They're like, hey, we're going to help you pay with development costs along the way, and we're going to start out. Anybody could bid to be part of it, and then we're going to select the ones that we think are the most promising. So they selected four. I think it's like Blue Origin and Sierra Nevada, and Orbital ATK and SpaceX. And then they did a little bit of development. And they down selected the two, Orbital ATK and SpaceX. And now NASA has these two, or Cygnus, I guess. But anyway, whatever. These two companies that could deliver supplies to the International Space Station, and they just pay for what's delivered. And
Hmm.
these companies can use that capability for anything. It's greatly reduced the cost. And then they did the same thing with the Commercial Crew Program. And SpaceX launched two astronauts to the International Space Station at the first part of June. They're coming back, this Saturday or Sunday. It depends on weather. And they're going to be launching astronauts every couple of months. And that SpaceX rocket, you and I can buy a ticket on. $55 million. I hope you're saving up.
Only 55 million. Oh my gosh. I wonder if I wonder if there's like a discount code, like we can get in like, 55 million, maybe like 20% off. It would
Yeah,
help,
like
something like that.
99.99% off. That's what it would
Yeah,
take for
yeah.
me.
Same here. Well, I got to go, my friend. I actually have a meeting I'm already late for. This was fun. I'll talk this anytime you want. And my invite, my open invite, is to come down to Atacama Desert, look at the Milky Way at night. It's unbelievable, and all the telescopes and salt lakes that we have down here. So you make it down here, we'll go there, my friend. I
I
really
like it.
appreciate this.
I'm going to take you up on it. You enjoy your next meeting. Take care.
Will do. Thanks, Nathan. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.